Joe Biden is, he's a go-to-war guy. He was one of the strongest supporters of the Iraq War. He's been supportive of every war that's come along. My understanding of the war is that not that Zelensky is pushing this war as hard as he can, but that the neocons in the White House want this war. They want a regime change with the Russians. They want to exhaust the Russian armies. This is what Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said in 2022. Our objective is to exhaust and degrade Russian forces so they cannot fight anywhere else in the world. And President Biden acknowledged that one of his objectives in the war is regime change in Russia, removing Vladimir Putin. Well, if those are the objectives, that is the opposite of a humanitarian mission. That is a mission to maximize casualties, to prolong the war. It's essentially a war of attrition, and that's what we're seeing. And the brunt of this is being paid by the flower of Ukrainian youth. There have been over 300,000. This is something that the U.S. government and the Ukrainian government have worked hard to hide, the number of casualties, which has been catastrophic. This is the most violent conflict since World War II that's taken place probably anywhere in the world. And the casualties are enormous. Over 300,000 Ukrainian dead. The Russians are killing Ukrainian, depending on who you believe, at a ratio of 5-1 to 8-1, which was the 7-1 in the recently leaked, the whistleblower leaked Pentagon documents. And the Russians cannot lose this war. We're being told they're losing. They cannot afford to lose this war. This is existential for them. And they have been building up their forces. They have a 10-1 artillery advantage on us, and this is an artillery war. So it's simply, and we do not have the artillery to replace what we've lost over there. I would say that the real story starts in 2014. When the U.S. government, and particularly the neocons in the White House and elsewhere, participated and supported the violent overthrow, a coup d'etat against the democratically elected government of the Ukraine, and put in a very, very anti-Russian government. This prompted the Russians, who then believed that the U.S. Navy was now going to be invited into the Black Sea to have a port at Crimea. It prompted the Russians to preemptively invade Crimea. At the same time, the government that came into the Ukraine began enacting a series of laws that turned the Russian populations of the Donbass region into second-class citizens. They illegalized essentially their culture, their language, and they began ultimately killing them. They killed 14,000 of them, and it prompted a civil war in the country. Joe Biden is, he's a go-to-war guy. He was one of the strongest supporters of the Iraq War. He's been supportive of every war that's come along, and that, I think that's one of the reasons that, some of those, that portion of the Democratic Party, which is a very, very powerful kind of kingpickers, was very happy with him getting in office, is that he never says no to a war. I think Trump, I liked a lot of what Trump said about foreign policy, about disentangling us from this knee-jerk reaction of constant wars, and that the cost that imposes on our country. What it's doing, it's hollowing out our middle class. But then Trump did a lot of things, including walking away from the intermediate nuclear missile treaty, which was another provocation for Russia, because that treaty, we're putting these intermediate missile systems all along the Russian border in Romania and Poland, and in Ukraine, and those missiles can hit Cuba. Can hit Moscow in a few minutes. So there was a very destabilizing system. We all signed it, and he walked away from it. And I think that was another provocation. We should be de-escalating.